Good day. Today's Battle Rhythm Women Veterans View of the Transition Process will be hosted by Jeanette Gillis. Jeanette is the director of the network at America's Warrior Partnership. The network provides local veterans serving organizations connections to national resources when a veteran's request cannot be met locally. To find out more about the network, please visit americaswarriorpartnership.org/the network. That's it for me. The floor is yours, Jeanette.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you to all of you for being here with us today on our Battle Rhythm. I would like to welcome all of our branches, 4-Star Alliance members, any VSOs that are with us today, as well as guests. As Allison said, we are fortunate to have Lourdes Tiglao here with us. She is the director at the VA Center for Women Veterans. She serves as the primary advisor to the Secretary on department policies, programs, and legislation that affect women veterans. She's also an Air Force veteran. Her background traverses sectors in the military, federal, and nonprofit organizations, spanning over a decade in leadership roles across business, communications, and healthcare. So I think we're in for a treat today, and I'm very proudly introduce you to Lourdes.
Thank you so much. Hopefully it's okay for folks, but I will not be doing slides. I tend to be a little bit averse to slides when I'm speaking to folks, just because I want to make sure that I'm able to have some candid conversations. So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me for this event. I'm really excited to not only be able to impart some of the knowledge that we have here at VA, but also to be able to listen to all of you to hear what you're hearing and seeing from the field. It's truly an honor to be here, and I want to make sure that I'm also just lifting up that it is because through all of you that we're able to do our jobs, because you are in the communities where we are not, and we want to make sure that we are not only trusted partners, but also responsible partners to each other. And so being able to participate in events like this allows us to make sure that those relationships stay strong, as well as make sure that you guys are getting up-to-date information of the things that's happening over here at VA. So as mentioned, I'm Lourdes, currently serving as the executive director for the Center for Women Veterans, also a woman veteran. You probably may be able to tell, maybe not be able to tell, but I'm not from the US. I actually am an immigrant. I have still a very slight accent. Why is that important? Because I think that knowing what transition looks like for a lot of people can be different, and transitioning from one country to another, transitioning from one job to another, transitioning from a different identity to another, they're all really hard. Any transition is difficult because change is difficult. And real talk, there's really no process that's absolutely perfect for everyone. And anyone who says otherwise is not looking at people as a whole person, the beautiful and unique individuals that they are. We've all heard how difficult women veterans transition can be after the military service. And that's a little bit of what we'll discuss today, not only to look at the unique challenges that women veterans face, but also look at a little bit of the resources that you have at your disposal with VA, things that you can leverage, as well as some of the resources and the collaterals that we already have here that you can use to amplify the work that you're doing. And to, again, if there is something that you all need in your respective fields to help you do your work better to serve our women veterans, we're here to be that trusted partner, not only to our women veterans, but also to all of you. So I'll start a little bit in this talk with some of the challenges, as well as just breaking it down from the challenges from a self-identification, healthcare, employment, and then we'll transition over to just some of the things that are available now at VA, and then we'll kind of transition over from there. So first, challenges. A lot of women veterans, I think I'd say that one of the biggest hurdles that we have right now is for women veterans to actually identify as a veteran. I think that there's a host of reasons for why women veterans won't identify, and it can vary across geographies, across cultures, across experiences. But I'll kind of distill it to a few specific points, and I'm sure that probably during our breakouts we'll be talking about it a little bit more. So first, prior experiences while in the military, particularly if they've experienced harassment, sexual assault, MST, intimate partner violence. These are just some of the traumatic experiences that tends to make women veterans just separate their identity to anything that's associated with the military. It's like they want to shed their skin and just be like, I am not, that person. There's also the institutional distrust. If during a time of vulnerability, whether it's because they've suffered any of those traumatic experiences, or they decided that they were going to step up and speak truth to power about some kind of unethical behavior, and the result of those instances where they tried to step up to stand for themselves or stand for others or stand for the institutions of upholding core values of the military, and the response is something that was, I'll say, less than ideal. It starts bringing in that institutional distress, that system with which that they have been representing is not for them, is not there for them. It's not there that they can trust. The other, one of the challenges that we have on self-identification is that sense of worth and sense of value in their service. I know that not only me, I know that during my transition, I actually had to question a few times, like, have I done enough to even be called a veteran? Some women veterans think that they didn't retire, or they weren't at the tip of the spear. They weren't in a particular MOS or career field. They didn't get injured, or a myriad of other reasons that we tell ourselves, or the myriad of reasons that we are told by others that's untrue. That sense of value for the service that they've brought starts getting diminished. Like, in isolation on its own, it might not seem like a big thing, but it's like a death by 1,000 cuts. If you keep being told that like 1,000 times over, it starts eroding that sense of self-worth. And then one of the last things regarding self-identification, why some veterans won't identify as a veteran, is that they think that the VA benefits are only for those who deserve it, i.e. the things that I just said earlier. They didn't retire. They weren't at the tip of the spear. They weren't catastrophically injured. So for a myriad of all of these reasons, they feel like VA benefits are for those who deserve it, who have earned it. And the thing that I always want to make sure that I tell people, but especially our women veterans, is that only 1% of our nation's population put on the military uniform. That 1% bears the burden of our nation's defense. And only a fraction of that 1% are women veterans. And so just by the very virtue of raising your hand, putting on the uniform, you're already part of that elite group of people who have signed up to defend this nation. Out of our entire population, 99% didn't do it, only 1%. And those are our military service members and our veterans. And so those should be celebrated. So moving a little bit from that self-identification, these again are the challenges. The other part of the challenges is in healthcare, particularly these unique experiences that I talked a little bit about. Women veterans often have very distinct experiences compared to their male counterparts, including those additional challenges in the military that inadequately prepared to accommodate women, and they feel that they're kind of disadvantaged within the military system, especially back in history. So if you take apart even the MST, IPV, like those traumatic experiences that we hear a lot of, let's just talk about even just the equipment. You can't tell here in the square, but I'm like 4'11". I'll still claim 4'11". I'm probably like 4'10" somewhere. But I had to get a waiver to get into the Air Force. Why is that important? Because the uniforms and the protective gear and the equipment were all made for men when I came in. And so, so think about this, like flak jackets that go down all the way to my thighs. And so the helmet that doesn't always kind of fit well. And then if you guys are familiar with the battle rattle, all of our mop gear, like they're not fit well to a woman's body. And so why is that important? Like at the time, maybe you can say, okay, yeah, we checked the box, that we gave them the gear. But the unfortunate part of that is you do that so many times, and there's a compounding effect from a healthcare standpoint. That's one of the reasons that one of the leading claims that women veterans have is actually musculoskeletal issues. And I'm sure that a big part of those contributors are this ill-fitting equipment. The other part that I wanted to highlight here is, aside from that, we'll go back a little bit on MST, because but I'll relate that to employment. So from a recent NDAA study that we did in 2022, it was shown that MST affects 1 in 5 post 9/11 women veterans. So if you look around your friends, your colleagues who are all post 9/11 women veterans, 1 in every 5 of them have been affected, have experienced MST. There's also gender-specific health issues, particularly on reproductive health, pregnancy, maternal mental health, as well as menopause-related concerns. We might not think about that so much right away when we get out at a younger age. However, as we progress towards life, those things that we thought were fun during the military starts to take its toll. Like a little bit of a story. Back in the military, they were testing how ejection seats landing in the ocean affect someone of an extreme low height, and I thought I would volunteer, and because I thought that was kind of fun. And so they would drop me from a 2-story tower into a vat of water and harnessed to an ejection seat. And so at the time, I didn't necessarily feel all of that impact on my body, but as I grew older, like those things have a compounding effect once again. And so those things that we used to do in the military, we don't realize how much of an effect that has on our healthcare until much later. The last part I'm going to talk about with healthcare is specifically on intersectionality. Women veterans come from a very diverse background and have various hats that we play, whether it's a spouse, a caregiver, a mother, a daughter, a sister, and all of these, and also our various races. Like I come from Asia. So race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and socioeconomic status, those are all intersectional cross sections that researchers should be have been exploring now, how these intersecting identities all influence health outcomes. So wrap it over to employment. I talked a little bit about that post 9/11 women veteran study. So I'll give a little bit of the highlights from that study, and I think that might prove a little bit interesting for this group. So women veterans, so post 9/11 women veterans and unemployment. So women veterans leave the military service with a higher education, but on average, just lower rank than veteran men, with Native American women veterans experiencing the lowest education and rank at separation. Education and training programs improve employment rates, but participation and outcomes of training programs haven't been well quantified for women veterans. Post 9/11 women veterans had lower labor force participation than non-veteran women, but had less full-time employment and also earned less than veteran men. One thing that I'll highlight here, military transition, critical time. It's difficult for women veterans, and where employment disparities first occur, whether it's they're not asking for the salary that they're worth, or they won't apply for a job because they haven't ticked off all the check marks. These are where these disparities first occur. Physical and mental health problems are associated with higher unemployment rates for post 9/11 women veterans. MST, like I said, affects 1 in 5 of post 9/11 women veterans. also associated with lower employment and lower labor force participation rates. To note, social determinants of health, such as self-confidence, social support, housing stability, they all have significant impact on employment for women veterans. And then the last thing, as I was talking about, being diversity and inclusivity, there's just insufficient data right now to disaggregate some of the findings for particular populations, including Native American women veterans, LGBTQ+, et cetera, in the current databases, the labor databases that they have. So all of that, so taking into consideration first that self-identification or the challenges of that, to then mixing that into how does that affect, if you don't even raise your hand to say that you're a veteran, and then all of these compounding effects on healthcare. So then what does that mean, or sorry, for employment? And then what does that mean then for the healthcare? If you're not employed, then you are less likely to, have something, unless you're connected to VA, to have something for your healthcare. From a healthcare standpoint, one of the things that I will say as a resource, the Women's Health Transition and Training, or WHTT, was launched in February 2021. It is a course that informs all of our women veteran participants about women-specific healthcare services that are available after separation. In 2022, like just from a stats standpoint, over 80% of WHTT participants who responded in the course evaluated felt that they had the necessary information to begin their VA healthcare employment. How do you get there? Tap events.mil/courses. Look for Women's Health Transition Training. So there is a misnomer in the way that name of the course is, of how that course is named. It says Women's Health Transition Training, but in reality, you can literally take that anytime. Like me, I've been out for a while, for a few decades, well, at least a couple decades. So I can still take that today. You can take that while you're still in the military. You can take that like right after basic training. And the reason that I say this is there is so much information that we are giving our veterans, our women veterans at the end of their career with the military. And healthcare is so complicated internally and externally to VA that we are shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't provide that information as far left of bang as possible. And so one thing I will just make sure to emphasize, WHTT, please have your women veteran service women, please take it. It'll give you like a step-by-step, module by module. You can come back to it anytime, refresh your memory. It's not a one and done. The other thing I wanted to highlight is the Women's Health Research Network. I highlight this as a resource because, one, women veterans are highly underrepresented in research in general, but two, more so in veteran research. So the Million Veteran Program, if you guys haven't heard of it, it's the largest genomic database regarding veterans. And so there is such an underrepresentation of women, and this is how we are targeting a more precise and specific medicine to be for interventions. And the only way we can do that research is to have participation. The other thing is just in VA research itself, when there's a call out for research participation, please have your women veterans go and actually raise their hand. From a benefit standpoint, there's one office that I'll just highlight, like is I would say my partner in crime and benefits is the Office of Transition and Economic Development, aka OTED. It is literally the belly button for all things benefits, transition and economic opportunities for all veterans. Two things that I'm gonna touch on with them. The VA Solid Start, it is this program that they have that calls every newly separated service member 3 times during their first year of separation. They'll assist them getting home loans, getting to healthcare, returning to work, getting mental health support. So all of these will happen in the first year. The only thing that's important is that the veteran or women veterans actually answer the phone for them. So So anyone who is like a VASS eligible women veteran who successfully connected with the VA are utilizing the most benefits at a higher rate than those who don't successfully connect. The TAP program, you guys have heard of it. It's run by DoD, but we get 1 day. There's over 250,000 service members that transition each year. Though we only have 1 day, we pack a lot of information, which is why it's so important for that women's health transition training to be done like in a separate format. So it's like doing it very early on. The last thing I want to highlight is just the work that the Center for Women Veterans does. Our mission is to make sure that we're advocating for equitable outcomes and access for VA benefits and services and opportunities for women veterans everywhere through education, outreach, and collaboration. The mission statement changed this year because we were trying to be very intentional in the center's mission to not only acknowledge the work that we do, but also to acknowledge that we can't do it alone. And so the term collaboration and opportunities are intentional because we know that it is not by VA alone, but it is through partnerships with folks like you, with organizations like yours, that we can do better and serve women veterans better in the long run. So my staff and I were working on not only the outreach to make sure that women veterans know what is available, also to make sure that they know, like, don't let themselves take themselves out of the running. Don't say, well, my friend said I'm not going to be able to qualify. Like, let VA do that part. That's our job. Part of the other work that we do is making sure that we eliminate disparities in usage and services and care of VA programs. So advocating internally and externally. And then obviously I talked a little bit about research, making sure that we are represented well in the research space, because it's the only way that we can make our presence known and to make the services that are being created to be more responsive to the needs of women veterans. In the next year, a big part of the work that we'll be doing is continuing on advocacy, but also an empowerment in economics, empowerment in self, and empowerment in advocacy. Particularly in the economic side, we're working on 2 areas: women veterans entrepreneurship and women veterans in STEM. Women in general are underrepresented in STEM fields. And so we want to make sure that they are taking advantage of the STEM scholarship that VA has, as well as opening up opportunities for women to get into STEM fields. So I'll close this with this. If you're in touch with a woman veteran, make sure that not only do they know that these are all just some of the resources that are available, but that their lives matter, their service matters. There's this saying that I like to give in other speeches, which is, we cannot be what we cannot see, whether it is in our mind or physically. And so if other young women do not see the women veterans that have come before them, how will they draw that inspiration that they too can be that person, can be that future leader in our nation? In the Military Women's Memorial, and especially in the Library of Congress Veterans History Project, in that project, there's over 130,000 stories, and there's only like 8,000 or 9,000 that are of women veterans. But women veterans have been serving since the beginning of the nation's history. And so I hope that as you go out, not only are you providing the information of what they can use to make their lives better out there, but also to encourage them to tell their stories. It is going to help inspire hope and inspire the next generation of women veterans that they can make a difference, and that they should know, and you all should know, that we as VA, we are here with them. We're here with you throughout the rest of their veteran journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lourdes. We do have one question. And that is, where do we send women veterans who are interested in participating in research studies?
So they can just reach out to us, 00w@va.gov. I'm going to put it in the chat.
I think Liz already did that for you.
Oh, perfect. Great. Excellent. Thanks, Liz.
Does anybody else have a question? You can ask it in the chat, or if you would like to interact with Lourdes more directly, you can come off of mute and turn your camera on and speak to her directly. Has there been any discussion around having women's specific transition courses during TAP?
There's been some discussions about that, but there's also a lot of varying opinions, and even within the women veterans community. This goes back to women veterans self-identifying as a veteran, or more specifically as a woman veteran. I've definitely heard from women veterans say, I just want to be treated like everyone else. And there's women veterans that will say, I want specific things for me. And so you have like various folks on the line. I know that there's interest, but as I said earlier, TAP is actually a DoD program of which we only get a day of. And that's part of the reason why encouraging women veterans to do the Women's Health Transition Training, or WHTT, even before they do the TAP program, because that's going to help them be way ahead of the game, like way ahead of the game. I would say any service member should start their journey with VA, like while they're still in the military. And it's not just about healthcare. It's, if you're going to move, do you need a home loan? If you're going to have children, do you think that you want to pass on your GI Bill? Like all of these various things. And I neglected to identify one particular asset, which is a gem, I think, in VA, which is the vet centers. The vet centers are available for anyone, whether you're a veteran, whether you're a family member, whether you are still in the service. It is available for you. It is discreet. It's not, they don't disclose to, if you're in the military, they won't disclose to the military that you were there, but it provides social and mental health counseling for those who seek their help, and they're all over the nation. And so I highly suggest getting connected with them, even if you're still in the military and you feel like you can't go to your military installation. And yes, Julie, there's so much more to tap into.
I have a quick question for you, and then we'll get to one of the other ones. Do we have any idea how many women veterans there are out there that just have not been identified?
Well, I don't know about the full of those who aren't identified. I can tell you that's there's over 2 million women veterans. And I can also tell you that there's about between 600,000 and 800,000 that's utilizing VA healthcare. And so whether they're identified or not, sometimes it's about them choosing to engage. And a lot of times it's like Yelp reviews, right, for the restaurants. Like if there's a lot of reviews of negative experiences, but no one's saying anything about the positive experiences, then the narrative is shaped only by those who are putting those negative experiences. I would say that we could do a better job. I mean, when I say we, not just VA, but we as a collective whole, we could actually be doing a better job in highlighting the positives, because I think that for those, I mean, everyone in VA is here for a reason, and we have our own relationship to our mission, to our veterans, whether we're veterans ourselves, or we're family to one, or friends with one. I think that we are selling those who are really going above and beyond short by letting their efforts be over, like the stories of their efforts not be heard. So I'll say that, there's this balance, but to your point, like there's more than 2 million, we still have a lot to go to get to. But part of the challenge for that is them self-identifying, but to like countering some of the narratives, because it's not the same VA it's not even the same VA from 2 years ago. There's so much legislation that's passed.
Right. Okay, let's get to another question. So thank you for answering that for me. Do you have a counterpart at DoD who's an advocate for women service members about to or in transition?
I am not sure about the DoD level, but I can tell you that in the Air Force, there is the Women's Initiative Team, and if you remember the group that finally got the policy to let the hair down, to have uniforms that actually fit women well, that was them. So there's that. We still, I mean, obviously for sexual harassment and assault, we still have all of those folks who are the sapper, a sapro. I don't know what the lingo is for the various services, but I remember for us it was sapper. Oh, different now for Air Force. Thank you. So yeah, the there's probably counterparts at the service level. I'm unsure about the DoD, but it's a good question.
Okay, well, thank you. Will the PACT Act address women who have not applied for benefits?
Yeah, the PACT Act applies for anyone who hasn't applied for benefits, in fact. So the PACT Act addresses particularly those veterans who have been exposed to toxic exposures. And I highlight that because that is the condition that must be met in order for someone to receive benefits through PACT. Now, the part about who haven't applied for benefits, what this does is it opens up the aperture for those who were previously denied, let's say for asthma. And like I had asthma. Well, I didn't have asthma before I went to the military, but I certainly did after the military. And the reason I say this is because in the past, it might be that they've been denied for a certain thing, and now they're finally eligible because of the PACT Act. For those who haven't applied for benefits, it really kind of goes down to the reason why they didn't apply. Is it because that they feel that they don't either A, deserve it, or B, they don't feel that they qualify for it? And so all of the outreach that we have been doing, we just finished our first nationwide Veterans Experience Action Center, where we really tried to reach very intentionally those women veterans who have never connected with VA at all. The PACT Act, I guess, serves as a catalyst to try to reach those women veterans who have not applied for any benefits. And that becomes kind of like our doorway in, or our hook. Let's see.
Got another question for you. Bernie says that when she transitioned, she chose to be there for other veterans and their families. Could you share information on any peer support or volunteerism when transitioning that the VA offers?
So so peer support. So in the let's see, Deborah Sampson Act, the recently legislated, so, and still ongoing. So in the Deborah Sampson Act, there's actually a particular piece of legislation that strengthens and bolsters peer-to-peer support for women veterans. So that's one way to do it, and to get access to be able to volunteer for that. There's going to be, I'm sure, training to be a peer-to-peer support mentor. But if you reach out to your local VA facility, they should be able to provide you information. If they are not able to provide you information, find a women veteran program manager. By the way, if you don't know who the women veteran program manager is in your local facility, step one, find a local women veterans program manager. They are your key to all the things that we need to do from a healthcare standpoint for women veterans in a health in that facility or catchment area. From a volunteerism standpoint, there's local, there's national ways to do that. We have the Center for Civics. There is an office specifically for volunteering. We'll get you the information hopefully we'll circle back to give you the information of the actual office, but it's Center for Civic Development or something like that. But Sabrina Clark is the executive director, her volunteering with VA, and so that is one way to get connected in volunteerism. Now, which types of volunteerism, I kind of don't have that. That would be Sabrina. Let's see. And then I think I covered the peer support. Hopefully that answers your question.
We have a lot of great comments and resources that are popping up in the chat. I'm looking to see if there are any other questions.
Oh, there looks like Dakowitz, apologies. So Dakowitz is the department's advisory committee on women in the services, and that is an advisory committee that is made up of subject matter experts and other service women and ex officios from different agencies as well, and they provide recommendations to the Secretary of Defense on how they can better serve their service women. And Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I remember. And thank you, Liz, for dropping in the Center for Development and Civic Engagement. I was getting them mixed up.
You're right on the Dakowitz, Lourdes. Yes, they've been around a long, long time and done a lot of work. You probably could find their information on, if you just Google Dakowitz, it'll come up for you.
So the one thing that I'll say is for these advisory committees, so that's an advisory committee for service women. There's also an advisory committee on women veterans that we have. The Center for Women Veterans actually runs that, the management for that one. These are public. When they meet, they are public meetings. And so I would highly encourage any of you to just watch for those Federal Register notices or sign up for those Federal Register notices with particular keywords, because that's going to help alert you to when those meetings are happening, and then you can actually participate or at least listen to what the conversations are about. I believe by legislation, there should be an area of public comment. Now, how they execute that, I am not sure how they do it for Dakowitz these days, but for us, we either will ask for questions early on and before we actually have a meeting, or we'll hold a particular time for folks to be able to ask their question.
All right. If there aren't any other questions, it looks like we might have just a few, literally few, extra minutes for our breakout. So thank you so much, Lourdes, for a great presentation. I'm going to hand the rest of the presentation over to Allison to introduce our breakout activity.
Hi, thank you, Jeanette. I really appreciate that. Today, we have our breakouts. We have 25 minutes for those breakout groups. So in a few minutes, I'm going to open up those breakout rooms for the collaboration conversation activity. When the rooms are open, you will be able to self-select a topic and go to that room. You select a room by clicking the blue join to the right of each topic. Today's topics are Women's Health Transition Training, led by Lourdes from the Center of Women Veterans that we just had. Thank you, Lourdes, for doing that for us today. Topic 2 is Strategies for Mental Health and Healing of Women Veterans, led by Ashley Albright. She is a veteran, author, and a presenter, and she's also a coach as well. So topic 3 is Strategies for Civic Employment of Women Veterans, led by Allison Albers. She's with the Women's Veteran Program Manager from Hired Heroes USA. So if you haven't done it yet, make sure you put your name, your organization by your name. And in order to save time and have as much discussion as possible, when you get into the room, just introduce yourself by saying your name and your organization. Like, I'm Allison Williams from America's Warrior Partnership. That way we can have plenty of time to really talk. We'll come back together in 25 minutes for a wrap up and hear key takeaways from the group. The leads from each breakout, they can either ask someone to share or they can share themselves. So here we go. I'm going to open up all rooms. You guys have a great time. Welcome back, everybody. Let's see what we all learned. So group number 1, the Women's Health Transition Training by Lourdes. Who was going to give the key takeaways?
That was me. I got
Excellent.
voluntold.
Awesome.
So we had an interesting group. We had a spread across state and federal, we were represented by a state that is implementing some of these programs at the state level. So there's a diversity office. Lisa Kay from Pennsylvania, Monroe County is part of a diversity office that is focusing on a women's specific outreach. We talked about how WHTT used to be in person, but then transitioned to online. And I think Lourdes mentioned this before, but just to reiterate, obviously it's focused on women veterans, but anybody who's involved with women veterans. So Lourdes, I promise that I'm going to go through this myself, just to evaluate it and see what I need to know. We talked about some of the challenges. I'll try and make this quick. You gotta keep me on time. I think the general idea was women's or health issues in general, but specific women's health issues are not top of mind on transition. And so there was discussion of whether to make it mandatory. And generally the idea was yes, but sometimes there isn't enough time remaining in your service to go through all these classes. So my first response was well, that's the government's responsibility to make sure there's time. So let's see. Yeah, I think that was, I think we also, I suggested the idea of while somebody's going through HTT, can the VA reach out to them and make that connection and say, hey, I am your point of contact where you're going to be living, because there was a challenge. Lourdes was talking about how people start it and then do they finish it? And then the real measurement is, are they using those resources at the VA? And making that connection, I think, is kind of a challenge. But I would tell you, Lourdes, that's the challenge in everything that we're doing, especially untethered veterans, right? I mean, not just women, but veterans in general. So did I catch everything?
Will was going to say something, I think. Go ahead, Will.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to circle back to the question I had asked right as the breakout room time expired, about how these programs interact with the BDD, which is in place for transitioning service members currently.
Yeah, and I was in the middle of answering, and I got the cane yanked out of the room. So what I was saying is that the going into the healthcare is kind of like it's two-step process. First part is getting your ratings to civility in order to understand like which part of the healthcare system or what area or what priority groups or what have you you go into. I think that it kind of feeds, the healthcare feeds from that BDD process. But during the PACT Act, we skipped that part and went straight to healthcare during the 1 year period to make sure that we get as much of our untethered veterans as best we can.
This is Lisa. If I can just piggyback off of what he asked. I've had many friends that have been deployed and living in different areas across the country and world, whatever. When asked of me as a service officer to do their claim while they're still in, they're not allowed to. So they have to use what the Department of Defense mandates they use, so-and-so service officer at that post or wherever, which then makes it difficult because they're not talking about specific when you leave and go back home or wherever you leave to state what you would have as resources there. So I think that's a little bit of a barrier that we've seen throughout the years, that we're not allowed to sort of intervene, even though they're doing. My own nephew couldn't work with me; he had to work with somebody else. And then I said, just finish with there, and we'll take over afterwards. But I think that's a barrier too. It's like we're asking the questions: where are you going back to, and what kind of resources can we help you with? Kind of like being in prison, right? You got to get out and do something. But I think that's a barrier that should be addressed as well, because our state was trying to get on board, to his point of reaching out to the service member and saying, hey, welcome back. Which county will you be back to? We're going to get you in contact with those people.
If you could, I think that might be the first time I'm hearing it. But if you could please send me a note more on that one, because that seems like, well, it is wrong. There shouldn't be these like barriers if you can only use certain people. Yeah,
friend from Germany, and he had to use somebody down in Fort Benning. So yeah, I don't know if we are not allowed to use any other service officer. Yeah,
definitely, definitely send us that information.
Yeah. I don't get that. I'll get you two connected.
Okay.
be no problem for me. So topic number 2, strategies for mental health and healing of women veterans. Ashley, are you going to, or did you find somebody else to present the key takeaway?
I will, because I wrote some key takeaways. Okay. So our key takeaways, one was to get more life coaches or having a buddy program implemented for veterans that are coming right out of the service during their transition period. And we posed the question, how can the VA approve of this? Like, some places had peer support specialists, but if they take a hit in funding, like, the peer support specialists are like one of the first people to go, since it's not considered health, even though mental health is health. Then we also discussed having more retreats. Veterans being surrounded by other veterans while experiencing intrinsic healing is very important. We also talked about having groups of like-minded individuals, whether that's online or in person. And another thing, writing, like journaling, just having some type of outlet for reflection. And then we also discussed the importance of feeling comfortable with sharing your experiences. And oftentimes as women, we don't share our experiences because we are afraid that we're going to seem too emotional or nobody will take us seriously. So just having validation for those feelings and reassurance is very important, and just creating an environment of safety. Emotional safety.
Emotional safety. Good job, guys. It was a large group, so that was amazing. Topic 3, strategies for employment of women, led by Allison.
I got nominated to do that, so I was taking notes. I hadn't done this in a while, so bear with me. I don't think I did key takeaways, but trends. We talked about trends with female veterans versus male veterans. We talked about issues during transition, best time to look for a job, and I have a great resource. I can share all the notes with the after action. But trends for male versus female is, I'm a mom too, so right at the top of everybody's mind is, what are my kids gonna do if I do get this job? So childcare is a big piece of that, and a resource that Allison shared is the Department of Labor Women's Bureau related to childcare. Most women are still not getting paid at the similar level of their male counterparts. We also talked about women are still more likely to be in roles related to admin, teaching, and healthcare, but we did recently see an increase in participation in more like labor-intensive roles for females in construction and some other fields. And then last summer, we did see more females returning to work than their male counterparts post-COVID. So I know that's a big win for women getting back into industry, probably having to deal with a lot of the being at home during COVID with the unpredictability of schedules. We talked a little bit about just resources related to thinking about not just the end state of getting the job, all the things that you have to do to get to the job. So talking about the best time when you should be thinking about that. If you want to change your career from your MOS, you need to start thinking about that sooner rather than later. There's things you need to think about with your resume, understanding what your worth and your transferable skills are from the military, but also understanding what it is that you can get paid for the career that you want. So like just kind of aligning your career and the job versus what your expectations are salary wise. And then we talked just a little bit about resume is a big one. And then two, just kind of knowing, what it's like to be in the civilian space, whether it's just even what clothes you're going to wear, because military is used to uniforms. Allison, if there's anything else that I forgot, please add.
No, you actually nailed it. Good job. Yeah, one of some of the biggest barriers we see with women veterans is that change from MOS. They no longer want to do it. So they feel that there's a lack of education or understanding or even knowing what they want to do when they get out. They just know they want to do not what they were currently doing or what they used to do in the military. So that education and training piece is really big, and getting their ducks aligned so they know what qualifications and certifications they need to be successful in their next career. So it's not waiting until that last minute, that transition point where they're like, oh, now I need to focus on a new job. As soon as you say, I don't really like what I'm doing now, and I don't see myself doing this in the future, just start coming up with a plan or trying to focus or to learn about new industries so that there's a better understanding of what's available out there. And that piece that she was talking about with DOL Women's Bureau, they have an interactive map where you can see the cost of childcare, which is really resourceful for women veterans. So if they're stationed in one area and they plan on moving home, they can do their research and see currently what childcare costs are in a different area than where they're currently at.
Awesome. It sounds like there's a lot of resources there. So definitely hit those up with me, and I'll put them all on After Action. I appreciate that. You always love it when the breakouts are so full of information. So thank you all for that. I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. So we have an upcoming opportunity. I hope you guys can maybe attend. We'd love to have some of you attend. This is for on November the 30th, Thursday. We have an upcoming community integration certification training. If you've not done that for your organization, it's a great opportunity for you. You can find out more information at www.americaswarriorpartnership.org/training. I hope to see some people there from this group. It would be fabulous. I want to thank Lourdes for attending and giving us all that wonderful information. Everybody here and all the participants, Allison Aberts, and also, Ashley Albright. Great for being there and doing the breakout. I appreciate your guys' help so much, and all those people that are there participating and gave us good conversation. Our next Battle Rhythm is December the 4th. And it's going to be on the Mission Act. So I hope I can see you there. I hope you guys can attend. We believe communities are the best equipped to improve the quality of life for veterans. Our goal at America's Warrior Partnership, and our goal today, is to provide partners like yourself with support, information, and best practices to help you deliver quality services to the veterans in your community. I hope we can see you again next time. You guys have a great rest of your day.